So I'm glad to be having you back on AAU Talks, the voice of higher education in Africa, as we bring you content that informs to transform. My name is Ajiman Ochefu, and I bring you greetings from the Secretariat of the Association of African Universities. And, you know, since 1962, the Committee of Vice Chancellors in Nigeria has been operating to the good and development of higher education institutions in Nigeria. And they have several milestones, achievements, prospects, and challenges. And it's all part of the success story that we have to share. Today, I have with me the Secretary General of the Committee of Vice Chancellors Nigeria to share with me 60 years of championing the development, progress, and enhancement of higher education in Nigeria. So don't go anywhere. Just pick your pens and papers and keep notes on points wherever you were in the African continent, as we'll have him back on the show after this short break. Stay with me, we'll be right back. Welcome back on AAU Talks, the voice of higher education in Africa. My name is Ajiman Ochefu. And before we went to the break, I was telling you about our topic for today. It's 60 years, discussing 60 years of the Committee of Vice Chancellors in Nigeria. And it's a privilege to have with me the Secretary General of the Committee of Vice Chancellors in Nigeria, and the person of Professor Yakubu Ochefu. Prof, you're welcome to AAU Talks.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And, you know, I always say that you fill a very big shoe right there in Nigeria with the role you're playing and taking good care of Nigerian universities. How has it been thus far?
Well, taking care of the vice chancellors, not the universities.
Okay, in its entirety.
Yes. Taking care of the vice. It's been a challenging job, given the number. When I became Secretary General in 2019, there were 179 universities. Fast forward to 2022, we now have 219 universities. So a lot more universities have come on board. If you came to our office, we have a big map of Nigeria with all the states and the universities located. But now, in 2 years, that map has become obsolete. We need to upgrade it. But it's been a wonderful experience helping to support the vice chancellors to do an extremely difficult job of being a vice chancellor in the Nigerian university system. So it's been very interesting.
You know, as massive as it sounds and looks, if someone said, what does it take for one to take lead of Nigerian vice chancellors towards a promised land, what would you say what the criteria would be like?
Well, in the wisdom of the executive, the General Assembly of the Committee of Vice Chancellors, a decision was taken some years back that the office of the Secretary General is best occupied by a former Vice Chancellor. And so my predecessors, a good number of them, 3 of them were former Vice Chancellors. And so the system is such that having done that job before, you're able to feel what the vice chancellors are feeling when they are doing their job. You're able to think like them, you're able to act like them, and so it makes it a lot easier, you know. But the only difference is that they have students and you don't have students, you know, and that's a big game changer as far as the entire environment is concerned. But one is able to understand and appreciate their problems. Basically, the work of the committee is to aggregate, identify and aggregate common challenges that vice chancellors face in the running of their offices and their positions, and trying to see how we can come up with solutions that affect them in general. And that has been the underlying principle for the establishment of the committee in the first instance.
No, today's topic is we're looking at 60 years.
Yes.
As you've sojourned from the beginning to this point. Yeah. 60 years marking challenges, marking successes, and also bringing on or forecasting on new frontiers. How has it been for you taking charge from your predecessors for the past 60 years, counting on your successes?
Yes. Yeah, it's important to state here that as at the time the Committee of Vice Chancellors was established in October 13, 1962, when they had their first meeting at the University of Ibadan, there were 5 Vice Chancellors. Yes. We had one Vice Chancellor, one university before independence. In 1960, when we had independence, we had a regional university was established, the University of Nigeria and Nsukka. And then by 1962, the federal government also established its own university, the University of Lagos, the first university established by the Federal Ministry of Education. Okay. And then the Western region and the Northern region established their own. So the University of Ibadan, under the leadership of Professor Kenneth Dike, now felt that they have had more than 10 years experience running a university system. These new ones that are coming on the block, we should be able to invite them to help them take those baby steps, in whole university, in managing a university. So they played a type of big brother role, as it were. So in the first 10 years, there were 5 universities. Okay. Yes. It's in the next 10 years that the number now began to grow. By 1976, we had 13 universities. Right. And by 1980, the significant development was that the state governments now began to establish their own universities. Right. The first one being the Rivers State University of Science and Technology. And then subsequently other states, governments, Imo State government established, Enugu State government established, and a number of them like that. And so the real massification of numbers happened in the last 20 years, as it were, when in 1999, private universities were now licensed. Right. So you now have a 2-tier system where you have public universities, federal and state, and then private universities. And so it's the steps. If you look at it from a historical perspective, it has not always been this huge number. It has grown steadily. Right. But like I said, from 1999, it has the growth rate has accelerated, where the federal government can license 10 universities at a go, and then boom, all of a sudden you had 150 universities, then you have 170, then you have 190, and the applications for establishment of new universities is also there with the National Universities Commission. So we've not seen 219 universities is not the end of it all. Where most likely we will hit 250 in another 2-3 years. I see that coming, yes.
That's marvelous. Now, at this moment, we begin to count our blessings and name them one by one. I understand that you actually met some achievements and you also achieved some. Let's count them right from the beginning. What are some of the achievements the committee has made that is worth mentioning and celebrating in 60 years?
Yes. The academic calendar that we now run in the Nigerian university system, in fact, the Nigerian educational system was a product of the Committee of Vice Chancellors. Before then, we were running 2 academic calendars. The universities were running October to May, which was the global standard, while the secondary schools were running January to December. And it meant that a student who finished university, who finished secondary school in December will stay at home till September of the following year before he could be admitted to the university, because the university admission will have happened before he finished, And it became a concern for fresh intake into the university. So the Committee of Vice Chancellors, in their preliminary meetings, met to discuss that issue, that there was a need to harmonize the calendar so that you don't keep qualified students at home for a very long time. So that was something that we achieved, to have this uniform system whereby you finish secondary school in June, and then by October, if you wrote the qualifying exams, you came into university system. Right. The second major output that came out of the Committee of Vice Chancellors was the admission itself. Before then, each university was conducting qualifying exams. So a bright student can write 4 qualifying exams, pass all of them, but can only take up 1 admission. And technically speaking, might deny 3 people admissions. Because then the communication process was not as straightforward as we have now. So the Committee of Vice Chancellors initiated the conversation that ended up in what we now have, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, whereby you wrote qualifying exams, you selected the universities of your choice, you selected the course of your choice, and then once the results came out, you went to that university that you chose. We were the first, I was among the first set of students to write JAMB in 1978.
That's
yes,
amazing.
So yes, and that year, 113,000 of us wrote JAMB, and 13,000 of us were given admission to go to the various universities. So that's how we all spread ourselves around. So a third major achievement has to do with the standardization of the academic curriculum, so that if you were going to transfer from one university to another, it would be seamless as it were. You know, which core courses did you take? Which composite courses did you take? Which general courses did you take? There was a bit of standardization that came out of a conversation between the Committee of Vice Chancellors and the National Universities Commission, that is the regulator of the Nigerian university system. And then, of course, there is the issue of the academic integrity. It was the Committee of Vice Chancellors that introduced anti-plagiarism software technologies into the Nigerian university system, because we saw that as an emerging threat that needed to be dealt with. And so went out of our way to procure technologies that will help manage the system. So these were some of the highlights of what the Committee of Vice Chancellors have done in the last 60 years, as it were.
That's splendid. And you know, there's also one matter that also we have to find out and test the strength and also achievements. You know, for the past 2 years, the global pandemic COVID-19 had also had its fair share in tormenting progress of higher education in Africa. And from your point of view as Secretary General for CVC, during the time where COVID-19 came, where digital learning, online learning had not really been cemented here in Africa, how was the approach like when it fell on your desk?
It was quite tough because it caught virtually all the public universities pants down. Some of the newer public universities and some of the private universities were able to make the transition to online learning very quickly because of the numbers we're talking about. But for some of the older public universities, because our universities, we count them in generations. The first generation universities were the ones that were established with CVC, where some of them have up to 30, 40, 50,000 students. And so the transition from face-to-face learning to online learning was extremely difficult. The Federal Ministry of Education came out with a pronouncement which said everybody should go online. You know, but when we now did a rapid assessment, you know, of how that policy directive was implemented, we realized that many of the public universities just could not do that because we had issues of very poor internet access. We had issues of capacity of the staff and students to engage with these new learning technologies. We had issues of inadequate and expensive bandwidth, you know, and then of course at the end of the day there were integrity issues as far as the proctoring of exams were concerned. So when you put all of it together, it was a tough period for Nigerian universities. But we saw that as a positive development because it now forced us to adopt technology, see the advantages of using technology, especially to mitigate some of the challenges that are inherent in our system. So if you have a large class of 300 students, you could engage them using technology rather than bringing them into an overcrowded classroom, you know. But it also created an environment whereby you could have meetings, online. You could attend conferences online, and these were things that we were not doing before. So that was the good side of the COVID reason. But as at the time it broke out, it caught us pants down.
Within the issue of online learning, is also the very disturbing issue of internet. It was quite precarious at that time, where internet supply infrastructure to aid learning was quite down. And we had the Nigerian research education networks available. How was negotiation been like? Negotiations and also consultation with the Nigerians and also the CVCs, and ensuring that things were working for Nigerian students?
Yeah, like I said, what the educational networks were doing at that time was to provide internet.
Yeah.
They were not, especially the Nigerian, was not the online learning component of their service was not really pronounced. The universities didn't take it seriously. It was not part of it. So they were concentrating more on providing stable and affordable internet access, And but for the university, yes. But on campus, yes. But when the student leaves the campus, how is he going to engage onto the internet? He has to pay from his or her pocket. When the staff leaves the campus, how is he going to engage? He has to pay for his or her pocket. And the conversation went on. I mean, if I paid my tuition, and you are now asking me to go online, provide me the access. Provide me the resources to pay for the access if you can't provide me the access. Ditto the academic staff. So that conversation went back and forth. And so what NGON tried to do was to say, okay, let us see how we can reduce the cost of bandwidth. Let us see how we can increase the amount of bandwidth that is available so that it can reduce some of the pressure that the universities were facing at that time. And they did a pretty good job. But as we went deeper and deeper into online provisioning, you find that the demand for bandwidth is increasing.
Very insatiable.
As almost insatiable. So we're still having that conversation that where we are now, things like bandwidth should be treated as a utility, just like water, just like gas. It should command a price that it's affordable for everybody in the ecosystem. And so the amount of bandwidth that a university should have, and then the concessions that the telcos should make to the students should be such that if you are on an educational platform, you should be able to connect at very minimal cost to be able to meet your learning needs.
And actually, why not far from the point where the digitalization and digitization agenda, which is a global call right now, commanding to be on the global table, you should have great feats in these areas. What is the story for the Nigerian higher education terrain in regards to digitization?
Well, we're doing very great stuff. Only 3 months ago, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund empaneled a committee of stakeholders to drive a digitization agenda. So we are building the Nigerian research repository, that will house over 2 billion pages of theses and dissertations going back the last 10 years. And then going forward, insisting that any new thesis that is being submitted must have an electronic backup that will go through a plagiarism detection software that was built by CVC. Initially we were using Turnitin and the other global but we decided to build our own that will be able to interface with our local repositories. We call it Eagle Scan, which is now available on the internet that you can subscribe to for Nigerian tertiary institutions. And so that will be able to establish some integrity in the data that will come to the repository. And then that repository will also manage intellectual property issues so that the people whose work are on that platform will be protected. And for reward systems, we're also working out a modality whereby if somebody uses your work for commercial benefits, you should be able to get a reward as well. So the steering committee is working, is putting all that together. So we have a very robust digitization agenda, also capacity building for e-learning and online learning and things like that is part of the whole program. We're looking at the model that the Egyptians have built, the Egyptian Education Bank, whereby if you are a citizen of Egypt, you could access all the global repositories, Elsevier, Scopus, Wiley, and all those big closed databases for free, to build your capacity, your research interest, and stuff like that. So it is the model that we're adopting to say we want to create a platform whereby all Nigerian researchers, all Nigerian students, all Nigerian faculty can access local journals, international, global journals, open journals, closed journals, on that platform, paid for by the Nigerian government, so that you don't have any issues. We say you don't have access to digital content, and also to be able to now at the back end do a benchmarking to see who is doing which research where, who is engaging, who is accessing the databases. And so we'll be able to come out at the end of the year to say University A, Department A, Academic A is the one who has done best as far as accessing, doing research within Nigeria is concerned. Because we found out that we've done a lot of stuff, but there's no database whereby you can say how many people have done research on the impact of COVID-19 in this set of students, So you can go to that database and say, okay, I want to conduct research on the impact of COVID in Abuja. And that database will tell you that 150 other people have already done that one. Yeah. So in terms of originality, you're doing like about 20%, You can then say, okay, I'm not no longer going to do Abuja, I'm going to do Borno. And your originality score can go up to 90% because maybe only 5 or 10 people have done research in that area. So that is what we are doing, the Committee of Vice Chancellors, working with other stakeholders, with support from TED Fund and NUC to drive that process.
That's remarkable. So if you're just tuning in, you watching AAU Talks on AAU TV, and we're discussing the CVC, the Committee for Vice Chancellors in Nigeria, at 60 years, discussing the milestones, challenges, and the way forward. I'm here with Professor Yakubu Ochefu. We'll be going for a short turn. We'll come back and then we'll talk more about partnerships and international collaboration. Stay with us, right back. We're still on the Committee for Vice Chancellors in Nigeria at 60 years, and this is a long time coming, and we have to find out from Secretary General for the CVC, Professor Yakubu Ochefu, about the achievement prospects and a whole lot of matters that we need to find out from him here. And Prof, welcome back on this one. Let's now look at the point on prospects. What lies ahead of you, and we want to save that for the end. But let's look at how are you building the future of able people filled with more leadership skills, poised with so much insight, like your generation. What are plans to build capacity for other vice chancellors who are also joining the CVC?
It's a very interesting question, and when I assumed as Secretary General in 2019, I asked my deputy, how many people have been vice chancellors in the Nigerian university system? And he scratched his head. Nobody ever asked that question before, so we really don't know. So I said, okay, then let us go and find out. And to date, we've been able to identify 756 Nigerians who have been vice chancellors since 1960. And we're now breaking it down to what were their background, academic background, what were their ages, what was their gender, how long did they stay in office, how many of them are still alive, And so, so you have we have 4 generations of vice chancellors that are still alive. The generation that was there in the late 80s, late 70s and 80s, about 4 or 5 of them that are still alive, that we're also trying to showcase as we're celebrating. 35 of that number are women. Incidentally, the first female vice chancellor passed on about 2 months ago, from the University of Benin, Professor Lele Williams. And then 40 years later, University of Benin is getting its second vice chancellor, female vice chancellor, Salami, which really took a long time to come.
Yeah.
But as we speak, we have the largest number of female vice chancellors ever in the Nigerian university system, 17 of them that are currently serving as vice chancellors. So the 4 generation of vice chancellors that we have, part of our workflow is to build capacity. Every year we run a workshop on capacity building for newly appointed vice chancellors. Yes. The National Universities Commission, the regulatory body, also does the same thing. So they focus more on how to engage with Parliament, how to engage with the other regulatory agencies and things like that, while we focus more on the more salient versions of how to get money, how to do funding, how to engage with the private sector, how to engage with your alumni associations and things like that. So that is the work we do, building their capacity, how to engage with other stakeholders, with their governing councils. So it's something that we are doing. Succession planning has been a bit of a challenge because of the way vice chancellors are appointed in the Nigerian university system. So it's an all-comers game. So it's not something that you identify somebody and you build this capacity hoping that he will get there. But be that as it may, the deputy vice chancellors, the deans are also, we encourage vice chancellors to support them to go for training, to build their leadership capacity. So we also hold leadership training workshops for those line managers, because we know that out of 5 of them who hold strategic positions, 1 might be a vice chancellor one day, and it's important that we begin to build that capacity. So that's where we are in that regard.
It's a remarkable achievement to have 17 female vice chancellors now. But in this era of gender equality and also trying to bring in affirmative action to give women a voice and also a role in higher education, do you see a future of women playing a very huge role, massive fraction when it comes to vice chancellorship in Nigeria?
Yes, I do. Changing gender roles are on us. We can see it very clearly. I like to tell people that when I went to primary school, you could count the number of females that taught me. When in primary school, if I went to hospital, you count the number of female nurses. But you fast forward 50 years, you'll be looking for male nurses in the hospitals, you won't find. You'll be looking for male teachers in the primary and secondary schools, just a bit here and there. So our women are coming, and all we can do is to encourage them. Because I think part of the challenge is that most times we try to hold them back because we believe that their roles and responsibilities are culturally and biologically defined, and so they shouldn't engage. And so within the Nigerian university system, you see a lot. You go to some universities, they have 2 deputy vice chancellors, and both of them are females. Or you have a female vice chancellor, a female deputy vice chancellor, and then a male as the second vice chancellor. The bursars, the registrars, you find a lot of females in that capacity. A lot of them are acting as deans. So, but most times when you say there's a position, there's a vacancy has been declared for vice chancellor, why don't you apply? The wahala is too much. They don't want to get into. So we encourage them that look, give it a shot. You have examples that we can lay out, and it's the thing about it is that it's spread all over Nigeria, from the north to the east, the west, in technology universities, in specialized universities. The women are all represented. So we use them as examples to other women to say, if she can do it, then you can do it. So we're encouraging our women to take up more leadership positions in the universities.
And you counted on more collaboration as well. How well has CVC created a platform for more collaborations within Nigeria and even within other countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and other countries in Africa?
Yes, we encourage a lot of exchange of visits. So every year we have a conference of the Committee of Vice Chancellors, and we take it from location to location so that it will afford the Vice Chancellors to visit other universities within the country. We also encourage them to attend convocation ceremonies of their colleagues. And whenever we meet 4 times in a year. Whenever we meet, we have a session for comparing notes. I have this problem in my university. I don't know whether you guys have it in your university. How did you deal with it? I need help and I need ideas. And so that is the type of platform that we run within the system. And then, of course, we engage with our bigger brothers, the Association of West African Universities. And that is why we are here today looking at the strategic plan. The Committee of Vice Chancellors made a lot of input into that strategic plan. Our bigger brother, the Association of African Universities, we house this mini secretariat of the association in our office in Abuja, and piggyback on them to extend the good work that we're doing.
Sure.
One of which is the medical mobility program that the North Africa Regional Office is promoting, helping Nigerian universities to build capacity in medical education, which was promoted by the former Secretary General, and we are working. We've gone to Egypt to do site visits, and then another delegation is going to go to Egypt shortly to drive that process. So there's a lot of collaboration going on, and of course with other global educational bodies as well. We have a memorandum of understanding with Universities UK International, which is the equivalent of CVC in the UK. We visited them in the UK, they visited us in Abuja, and we are working on collaboration on how to do research, how to engage with Parliament. Some of the areas where we know they have capacity, we piggyback on them to help us grow.
I understand that there are a lot of challenges within the scope where you run as a Secretary General for CVC, some of which are the security challenges that Nigerian universities are having, and also with strike action, which are being precarious. What are your scope towards these matters in running or taking the lead with these vice chancellors?
Yeah, I mean, we've had situations where bandits, kidnappers have attacked our universities and snatched our staff and students, which it's a story that falls out of the bigger security challenge that we have in Nigeria. And we've made representations to the Inspector General of Police, we've made representations to the Minister of Education to say that, I mean, we can't, this is not just it, it's not as if the universities are a space that is unique and distinct from the wider Nigerian space. We believe that security is a bigger problem that should encompass all of us, but given the type of people that you have in the university system, there has to be extra effort to secure those environments, and so the police are working with the vice chancellors to improve the security situation. Some vice chancellors have taken matters into their own hands to engage local vigilante and security staff to also secure their campuses. So that is something that we're taking very seriously. The strike is a most unfortunate thing, and I tell anybody who cares to listen that we have been in this strike, negotiations with government, agreements, government does not fulfill the agreement, and we go on another strike. We have gone that vicious circle. This is over 30 years. And so, as people who have that intellectual capacity, I mean, a problem that lingers for 30 years and you're not able to solve it, it tells a very compelling story, you know. And the reason why we're not solving it is because there's no sincerity and there's no political will, especially on part of government, to resolve this matter once and for all. For the academic staff union, the issue is ideological. They believe that the federal government of Nigeria has the resources to improve the facility and the welfare of members. Federal government says they don't, that they used to have, but they no longer have because the numbers have increased exponentially. And so there must be some form of cost sharing. And the academic staff union are saying there can't be any form of cost sharing. Nobody, the students will not pay tuition fees. It has to, all the cost has to be borne by government. And so, so we've been in this ideological exchange going back and forth nearly 30 years. And so we need creative, constructive, you know, disruptive, if you may put it that way, ideas to solve this problem once and for all. We've been home now 5-6 months. It's mentally tasking to the vice chancellors, to the students, to their parents, and the entire system is in very bad shape. You know, so but this particular strike, the ball is firmly in the hands of the federal government. If they say they want to resolve it today, it will be resolved today, because every other stakeholder has done his own bit. It's for the federal government to now take a decision that they are going ahead or they are not going ahead, and then we'll see how the matter is resolved. But like I said, very unfortunate that we have been in this circle for 30 years and we've not been able to get out of it.
We're hoping so it happens that way.
Yeah.
Let's now take on the prospects. So the way forward for the CVC,
Yeah.
and you made one point about that. What else is on your map for the future?
Well, for now, the low-hanging fruit for us is that we are hoping that the strike will be over so that we will celebrate 60 years of leadership in the Nigerian university system. That is something that we've actually already started. We started with a series of soapbox events to discuss these issues of the challenges and the prospects. We have an innovation challenge that is currently ongoing online, getting the best of ideas and innovation coming out of the university system. And at the end of the day, we'll pick regional champions and national champions and give a prize for the best students. We're going to have a sports event. We're going to do a half marathon in August, you know, to also celebrate 60 years, you know. And then in October, we're going to have a grand finale whereby the people who have stood by the Nigerian university system, the institutions that have stood by the Nigerian university system, our partners, our friends, we will invite them to Abuja and celebrate with them and recognize them and then think of the next 60 years of the Committee of Vice Chancellors. So for us, that is what is on the agenda going forward. By 2023, we'll come back to the drawing board and look at our strategic plan and see what we have done and then see how we can also extend it further.
Great. So, you know, now at this moment, the big question is, who has not joined the CVC? Do we still have institutions or vice chancellors who are yet to join?
Yes, like I told you, there are about, in the last 2 years, there are about 30 new universities that have been newly licensed. Some of them have just started operations. Some haven't really started operations. Some of them have gotten licenses, they don't even have vice chancellors. It is the vice chancellors that joined CVC, not as it were. And it's an annual subscription of 600,000 naira that they pay to become members of CVC. So the people that have not joined, some are members, but they are not active, which is common in most subscription-based organizations. AAU has the same challenge. You know, you have nominal members. You know, they show up here and there. You know, and then some have applied to join, but they haven't taken up. And then some don't even know that CVC is for them to join. So we have the federal universities, the state universities, and the private universities all coming together. And so those ones who have not joined, we are engaging them to say these are the benefits of being a member of CVC, and please come and pay your subscription and take your rightful place.
It's been a splendid moment with Professor Aboki, Professor Yakubu Aboki Ochefu, Secretary General for the Committee of Vice Chancellors in Nigeria, and you know, it's 60 years. I mean, there's a whole number of years of achievements and prosperity. If you're a stakeholder, partaker of the Nigerian higher education stream, you should be part, get involved in this activity and celebrate your quota you've contributed to higher education in Nigeria. It doesn't matter how small or big, you are a part of the stream. So, Prof, let's pick a remark from you so we can bring it to an end.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank and appreciate AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. You guys are doing a wonderful job promoting higher education in Africa, and we have excellent relationship with you, and we are looking forward to developing more relationship. We had a strategic meeting yesterday, and we looked at areas of collaboration, you know, and I believe that Africa should tap into the benefits, the opportunities that the fourth industrial revolution has laid before us. It's a revolution that is driven by knowledge. It's a revolution that is driven by creativity. And these are things that come to us naturally, as it were. It is the operating environment to harness that knowledge that we need our governments to provide and make sure, so that the youth continent of Africa will take its rightful place in this fourth industrial revolution that is knowledge-driven, is technology-driven. And we all know that technology is a leveler, you know, and our kids who are born into the age of technology are doing fantastic things around the world. We should be able to expose them, provide them the operating environment so that they can play in that space. And so we look forward to engaging with our governments, with our public institutions, with our private institutions to say, let us not miss this opportunity of the fourth industrial revolution. Let us all be on one page to ensure that we are right there with the rest of the world in reaping those benefits.
Great. Also, appreciation to you for making time and opportunity to have you on AAU Talks, the voice of higher education in Africa, and also for your time watching us on AAU Talks. Have a nice day, and we hope to come your way next time. Catch us and follow us more on the voice of higher education, where AAU Talks is always leading the course with the transformational content to transform you wherever you are. Have a nice day and be safe. Bye.